Hello, everybody, and welcome to the game. All right, I'm really excited for a couple of reasons. But right before we went live, what did you just ask, Jake?
Yeah, if I could time out Naga.
Yeah,
Jake's drunk with power.
Give him an power for 10 seconds. It was like last night where I made fun of Josh and he deleted one of my lines, and I was like, ooh, good play, good play. Anyways, so what's up, boys? You excited? Excited?
Oh yeah, it's been a long time since we've had a podcast. Yeah,
There's a
couple weeks.
Yeah,
actually.
A couple of so never mind real life.
More than a month.
Yeah.
never
Because
mind real
who gives a fuck about real life time?
Yeah. So how long has it been in game, like in session that we've had? So I think
It's been like 2 sessions, hasn't it?
Three sessions.
No, we met up last session together finally. But you were oddly quiet.
No. I mean like all players, not all characters.
I mean, Neil was here last time, right? He just never took the apple out of his mouth, right? Is that what you're saying, Seth?
I didn't have an apple in my mouth. I had a custom-made Aurorum Thronekeeper badge that Scott sent me.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Neil's clearly the favorite PC.
It's kind of true.
All right, so right before we get started,
Most divisive, definitely.
I do want to say a big thanks to Tesh for in our cast chat being like, so we're playing today, right? Which led to everybody in chat talking and Neil eventually pinging me. I'm not joking. 10 minutes before the channel went live, woke me up. And I was like, right, run downstairs.
I believe my exact quote was like, should we like check if he's alive or something?
Wait. Huh.
What's up?
I am... Oh, never mind. Understand. Never mind. Okay, cool. I was just reading something and I was like, I don't understand, but then I was reading it backwards because I'm a dummy. Okay, let's go live. Let's jump into the game. So, I'm going to allow Tesh and Jake to fill Neil in of exactly what happened last session so that we can go forward. So, only need less than 1 minute recap of last session. Go ahead, boys.
Okay, well, due to my great tactical acumen, I won the best battle of the war so far as you. So you can take credit for my glorious deeds.
Thank you, I will. I'd like to thank everyone for witnessing my ultimate victory on the front lines against, once again, the Riders of Wherein and Raven facing overwhelming odds.
I nearly threw up. Just a little.
There's been chatter about whether those riders should be renamed.
I want to rename them because
so tactical acumen. So you did well in that battle, and then there was also the other people.
Yeah,
that
you
helped
forced
out.
me to play Vigil, and I nearly got them killed.
Yeah, Vigil, come on! I really wanted to destroy Vigil. I tried so hard, but unfortunately, I couldn't.
We got lucky, and then Jake and I started rolling insanely high, and we got lucky.
So the battle in Vigil lasted.
I believe
days.
Scott stopped rolling over 10.
Yeah, no, I discovered my secret power, Neil. You steal luck. I just took someone down with me.
So we're actually going to switch over to the map of what was currently happening. Hold on, if I can make it. I'm dragging and dropping, but Roll20 is just like, It's been.
I don't know about
so
that.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah, they apparently did some new system or something, dev something, but the page has been glitchy as all hell since.
That was fantastic information. They apparently did some new something or something.
I got a message about their new dev system or something like that. I didn't read it because I'm not a dev.
So with the after the last battle, what ended up happening is we had the war up here. That ended with the Riders of Wherein and the Gish of what's that nation called? Of Malta. The Gish army and the Riders of Wherein winning the war, and the Free Folk arriving in time with Tesh at their helm, at their lead, looking to join the war, but nothing happens.
Literally watch them get defeated. Like, hi, we're here. Oh, okay, you won.
So realistically, they just got to act as like helping to shore up the battlefield, defend the land, so on and so forth. That sort of stuff.
Treat the wounded.
And then down to the south, a much longer war or battle, I should say, took place, and that was, as we had already said, Haude Gwenh smashing their soldiers against the walls of Vigil, eventually smashing down Vigil, and the army of Valoran kind of crushing them. It was pretty amazing. So because that battle lasted for so long, technically speaking, when the battle ended up north, the one down south was still going on. So why don't we bring our attentions to the north, to the party, to the three PCs finally reunited. As a reminder of exactly where you people were when that battle ended, leading the free folk was Tesh. Tesh immediately went to finding the wounded, especially the wounded of your side of the army, but also the wounded of the other side.
I made specific note to tell the soldiers that treat everyone equal. The war's over. Treat it as such.
Correct. And Jake, please remind
I think I said kill everybody.
We did ignore that suggestion of yours. Please remind me where your character went to, because honestly, I couldn't remember exactly what you said.
Right, what? I wasn't listening.
Remind me where you were right after the battle. Why is my game always so
what battle?
high? The one up north, dude. The one that one was actually part of.
I went and made sure Cthulhu was alright.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, that's right. You went and found Cthulhu and then was able to kind of like walk around with him. That's right. So that was kind of where you immediately were. And Wherein himself, he obviously he was aware of the fact that there was a, what do they call it on the battlefield? A Malta on the battlefield. But he didn't go and like chat with them or anything like that. He just, kind of because his voice is still all messed up, he went back to the city to make sure that the city itself was defended. So you went and checked on Cthulhu and the soldiers. He went and worked on the wounded, and Wherein ran back to the city to make sure everybody was safe. Why don't we pick up here? Sorry, I couldn't remember where one went. Why don't we pick up here with where your characters are, what they're doing, immediately after the battle. So I imagine again, maybe you're the most mobile person at the moment. So we'll throw the camera to you.
Turn the music down, please.
Yep.
So I'd just be heading back to the castle with Cthulhu, I'd say.
Sure. Just heading straight back to the castle itself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you head back to the castle and you bring and we'll leave kind of, what's his name, Valoran out in the battlefield, tending to the others. As you go into the castle, like specifically to the castle, not just into the city, you would notice that there are that Wherein himself has already been kind of like with a bunch of his riders riding through the kind of like almost like grid riding through the city, kind of combing through it to make sure everything's safe. You could easily gather his attention, flag him down, whatever the case may be. And also, he obviously again saw the others on the battlefield, but he has not officially seen or spoken to those people because you were the one that brought them to the city. Go ahead, Jake.
He would just catch Raiden's attention and kind of motion for him to join.
Oh, what?
Nothing. Totally didn't click the wrong button by accident.
Turned his camera on.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
What was that? Sorry, Jake, I was distracted by...
Flagged you down, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm being offered a biscuit alongside my tea. I'm going to have a biscuit. I know.
The words, that phrasing, everything
It's so
is
British.
so British.
Right, I know. And just so you know, we've been for a walk around some stately gardens this morning. Like, do you get more British? Thank you very
I
much.
mean, you can. I suppose you could... Never mind.
Just one final thing on there. Look at my mug. Got a sloth on it. It's cute.
Oh.
Mine has Bette Midler on it. It's cuter.
I don't really know who that is.
Mine is... Oh,
You
it's
know
not
who Bette
invisible
Midler
now.
is?
No.
Have you ever
but-
seen the movie Hocus Pocus?
Maybe once as a young child.
I mean, that makes sense. It's not really like it's a cult classic for a lot of like, I don't know, women in their 30s over here. But it's Bette Midler is in a million, like, oh God, I'll look up examples of movies. Like Stepford
Okay.
Wives, the remakes. Oh, she's so amazing.
I have my invisible mug that's not invisible
yeah,
because we don't
invisible
have a
mug,
screen
yeah.
on at the moment.
I like that.
Don't tell my wife that I said it's not that good. She's a woman in her 30s over here.
Scarf.
She literally watches it like 100 times.
If I'm gonna
between
send
September to
anything
November.
to your way,
Fair
you
enough.
know what
Fair
I'm gonna
enough.
send.
Yeah, fair enough. Divorce papers. Like, yeah.
Rayron would obviously trot over when he's flagged down. I'm not sure he'd dismount as of yet, because there might still be things that need to be done.
It's good that we can finally talk now that the battle is won.
Yes, it has been a long fight. Still, I feel it would be best to rally our forces and head south to Vigil as soon as possible.
I would agree. However, I take it you've seen our guests on the battlefield.
There was rather a lot more, shall we say, flashiness than usual.
Yes, well, they asked for you, but you were down south. Perhaps we should go and speak to them. They wanted to talk to you about something. I don't know. They kept calling you deserter until I set them straight.
Thank you. Very well, if they want to talk, we can talk.
All right, let's head over.
So, you guys obviously not just gonna. I shouldn't say obviously. You guys head immediately over to join up with the Gish army that came to join your battlefield, or do you head over to gather Valorant first? And Steve, watch the goddamn movie. Go ahead.
Oh my God, Steve!
Let me Google
Steve!
Princess
Steve!
Bride. I feel like, have I seen it?
Oh,
Neil!
you sad zoomer. Watch
Oh my
Princess
God!
Bride.
Watch Princess Bride.
What is the matter with you?
I don't know. I've seen it. I'm sorry.
This is inconceivable right now.
Do you want to watch it together?
Yeah, actually,
It's like a date.
Actually, sounds really nice. Yeah.
We'll
We
do
should
that
have-
when
we
I
should
come
have-
over.
We should have the entire Aurorum cast.
Oh
hang
yeah,
out. Like all 10 of us hang out and watch Princess Bride.
that'd be such a shit show.
Yeah, it would.
That'd be a mess. Yes, I think picking up Valorant would be a good idea. Seeing as technically, this could be construed as a diplomatic talk
Good point.
rather than a little buddy post-war, post-battle. You know?
Josh, good. This word, I don't think it means what you think it means. Yeah. So you grab up. So when you guys go meet up with Valorant, Val, you haven't seen Rayrin in a long time, because when you were fighting the Battle of Rid, which unfortunately was lost, and when you went all the way over to Lashev, and then came back, all that stuff, even just as you joined the battlefield, you saw him up ahead leading the charge. You guys haven't seen each other in like a week and a half, 2 weeks, because of how things went.
It is worth noting, Bayron's hair is far more unkempt than usual. He has got stubble, and he's dirty. He's got this is post-battle. He's got a mixture of grime from blood and dirt.
He looks like a real man.
Particularly on his legs.
Rayron has cleaned up.
It's like,
Really, the first thing he would do.
Rayren's going for like a hug, and he like takes a step back and is just like, no.
One
And
would
then he
definitely
would
give
go
you
in for
a
the hug.
disapproving look.
He would immediately go in for the hug afterwards, but he would do that 100%.
I have to ask before you finish the hug, when you do your vroom, is there like an additional second casting to like clean up his face and hair too, or just to get the filth off of him?
No, it would be just to get the filth off.
Okay. So you do.
It's good to see you. It's been
And,
far too long.
and you, I will admit, I feared the worst when I heard that Rid had been taken.
Yes, well, I got very lucky. The free folk, while they It's like looks around to see none of them are like, oh, in with it. Well, they may have fallen apart at the Battle of Rid. They did see me to. It was Leshev, right?
Leshev,
Yeah. They did see me to Leshev and back. So I have to thank them for that.
Kept their honor.
Well, anyway, let us not dwell on negatives such as Reed. We were victorious in the defense of our home, and we will
Indeed.
retake and repair Reed should there be significant damages.
And Vigil was very adamant that their defenses will hold, but we should probably help them as soon as we can.
I dispatched the general many days ago now. You should be there helping them hold, but that said, it would be a good idea to go and reinforce them as soon as possible.
Indeed, but we have much to deal with here first. And then, like he said, it's one of those things where he'll notice the direction that you're coming from to the angle where, like, the what were they called?
Gish.
The gift.
Gish are, and he's like, right, yes, on my way.
Oh Jesus. Ignore that. Just ignore it. So you guys immediately yeah, you ignore it. So you guys are gonna go walking off to speak with the to walking up to the army. Oh, not walking. I imagine you're all on horses riding up to the army. Here's a big question: is it just the three of you boys, or do you bring anybody with you? Like, for instance, just a small group of guards or whatever with you.
There'd definitely be some of the riders.
And
He's
I imagine-
quite fond of them. They've been fighting now for the duration of this war together, and they've fought the most wars. The most
Yeah, they've gone from like place to place to place
and
to place to place.
against reasonably significant odds. You know, there's a bond between, like, Raymond feels a bond between him and his soldiers.
Just so you know, like, for instance, right now these are just soldiers of Valorant. Valorant. I always confuse the two names. There's the soldiers. These are just soldiers that happen to be on horseback, that have to be led by you. Afterwards, if you officially name them that, then you can have them be an official, like, army or whatever. But we can worry about that afterwards. I imagine Kithul you brought to the castle, so he would be able to, like, rest and recover from what he just went through, because he bought you guys hours of time. Correct, Jake?
Yes.
Long pause.
That was the most just fuck. Just say yes.
I was muted.
Oh,
I
okay.
muted myself.
I saw you reach for the mouse. It was just. It makes me think of, like, whenever you're watching like scientists or whatever, like answering questions in, like, a courtroom. It's just like. Yes. All right. So, anyways, moving on. So, yeah, I imagine that he was left behind. So you just grab a couple of, I suppose, riders of Rayrin with you to head over there. Now, when you actually go approach the army, it's one of those things where there's no doubt in anybody's mind who it is that's coming over. Your names and titles are shared amongst them, and certainly the reputation of one of you more so than the rest. I mean. They saw what happened on the battlefield. They saw the strategic planning. They saw tactics that they read about in textbooks. They know exactly who it was that led the other army, that brought to such incredible victory, and how well they worked on opposing sides of this army that they faced because of how well they knew each other's tactics. So as you guys are riding, you get the impression that, as you imagine riding through a military camp, you get people's looks, but they linger for a good long while on one particular member of your group. When you finally get good, like, halfway through, 3/4 of the way through riding to them, because obviously word has to travel over to the Magister himself that you're coming in. The Magister will have gotten up and come over to meet with you. So a good 3/4 of the way over to where his tent was. He would have actually come over to you. Also on a horse, to make sure that he met up with you. He came in on foot, but obviously as a commander, he would have been given one to lead his army in case he needed to, and so on, right? So he would ride up to you, and then you see sitting up atop the horse, I mean, you know the uniform, you know the man, so on and so forth. You can see the Gish attire. You can see the Magister rank. You can see all that before you. But what I need from you is either a knowledge local or a knowledge history.
What's the guy's name again?
You're about to find out.
I already
Knowledge
know.
local
But
or
you forgot.
knowledge history. Yeah.
Obviously, your character knows, right? Perfect. So you can tell without a doubt in your mind, you know exactly who this is. And this is Magister Heathgart is his last name. Now, it's because you've seen his face before. This gentleman here is the son of Savant Heathgart, the son of literally the military advisor to the Queen herself. So, I mean, this is not just any officer of any group of people coming in here. This is somebody who, even though himself is not by any means one of the best officers that Amalta has to offer, because of his heritage, he's considered a person of great importance to come here for diplomatic purposes. Again, you can imagine how certain nations might have their leaders' children be morons. But despite that, you know that because of his heritage, he has there's a weight to him being here. As you go riding towards him, and he's in the back of his horse riding towards you, he gives you kind of a Maltese greeting, which obviously you would know extremely well.
Rerin would return it.
Okay, and he'll look he'll look and say, "Impressive. The command on the battlefields, the skill of your soldiers. I have to say, we put ourselves in a precarious position. My soldiers were a little worried. They were apprentices. They will ride home as hedge. And many more of them will ride home today and the days to come because of your skill on the battlefield. You have my appreciation."
And of course, Magister Heathgart, you have my appreciation, the appreciation of my fellows, and the appreciation of my people for saving many lives.
You know how it is amongst our customs. Our soldiers need to have their teeth cut before they're considered prepared fully for battle. And we cannot have them testing themselves against Paradil's greatest forces. Unfortunately, too many children sent home in bags. It's not right. Having a lesser enemy certainly was a good opportunity for us, for them, and will hopefully bring more steeled nerves to the battlefield to shake things up along the borders of Yovance. You see him clearing his throat as he speaks of protecting Yovance.
Your reasons aside, you have done us a great favor, and I would see you thanked for this. We will extend what hospitality we can to you and your men until you are rested and well fed enough to move on.
He nods and says, "Appreciated. This ended quicker than was anticipated, and we can certainly head home immediately. However, I believe what was said to me beforehand by," and he looks over to one of the other chosen, giving you just like the slightest of nods, kind of, directing his attention to you for a second there, one, but back to Rayrin. There are more battles going on as we speak. My men would be more than willing to aid in whatever battles that you see fit. Be more than willing to aid in whatever way possible. We can stay for another week or so, but then we will have to return home."
If you are willing to lend such aid, bear in mind that we are at the tail end of a war, and our resources are not infinite. there will be little we can do to compensate you and your men for your time and effort.
We can discuss matters such as that in the future. Seems as though you might be getting back on your feet well enough. The people here, this nation's what? Or he says the city-state is actually how he says it. Or the state, my apologies. He says the state is what, less than a year old? And yet the people here fight with rods in their back, holding firm against such a tidal wave of an enemy. They have pride for their home. Something tells me that it won't be disappearing anytime soon. If there are details that need to be worked on, we can work on them in time. Now, I, again, imagine that you do not want to spend too much time resting when your saddle needs to be broken in. Do we head south? Do we head east? Where is it that this next battle takes place?
To the south, there is possibly another battle to take place.
Good. My soldiers have very few injured, and he looks, as he says this, as he looks over towards Valoran and gives a bit of a nod. They're already receiving attention for it. I believe I can trust to leave a few of those few soldiers under your care while I march south.
Indeed, they will be treated like our own.
May I take one of your banners, lest my army gets there before yours?
Valoran looks at the others.
I'd say one of the riders of Rayrin probably has a banner.
Unless you, of course, choose to send a... They're actually called bannermen, aren't they? People that actually... Unless you choose to send a bannerman to march with my army, I will gladly take them. I, of course, intend to have your flag fly under mine, but I will fly it nonetheless.
I believe a bannerman would be appropriate in this case.
I would agree.
Indeed.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. I hope we can at least share one cup of wine before duty calls and I must return home. I did not bring my army here alone. There was one other that came with me. He says, and you can roll an insight check, specifically one. You can roll an insight check.
Ooh. Not the person I was expecting to roll an insight check.
He's good at them, though, so it's okay.
Is that not showing up?
None of us are seeing your result, buddy.
Ooh.
It could be roll 20 just like lagging. Because that issue that we had forever ago that was annoying as hell, that jumped.
It's back.
Oh, I hope not. Is it really?
No, I don't know, but it looks like
okay.
it is.
Yeah, because I rolled.
Just click it again. Yeah.
And I rolled a 30, which is fucking fantastic.
Lies. Oh,
Yeah, that one.
your server has been interrupted.
Oh, good. Let's refresh the page.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, they popped up. They popped up.
Hey, 30. But we're taking the 30. Sorry.
Yes, 30 is a terrible roll. 30 is higher than most of my rolls.
You can tell that he is intentionally not looking at you as he's saying, my soldiers aren't the only ones that I brought with me. You know, it's one of those, like, he's clearly, like, focusing over in this direction as opposed to over here, too. Because you didn't inform us. He says...
I didn't what?
Huh?
Sorry. What were you saying?
He's intentionally not looking at you.
Yeah, you added
He
something
did-
onto the end, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like looking down at the floor, grinding.
No, he's, like, looking at
floor.
these two over here, but not looking
You said
over here at
because
you.
of something, and that's what I think we didn't catch.
Because he only told you they brought his soldiers with him. He didn't tell you they was bringing anybody else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he says, my soldiers aren't the only people that came with me. I brought an amber jewel as well, as the jewels wanted to know of what was going on over here, and they intend to send someone in the future to see if they can set up if they can establish a house, assuming that the battle went well.
Just look at Rare and like, what? Actually, would I know about this?
Why don't you roll me a history check?
I was about to say, I did a
most
lot of
likely does
research on
not
all
know.
of this stuff. Yeah. It just occurred to me that I probably would have researched a lot of this stuff. Let's have a look.
You both didn't roll, but one is a very high DC because of where he's from.
I'm not gonna.
What do you
I'll
want us
take
to roll?
No, you're good. Neil, you're good.
You're good. It's checking if I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, Neil, for you it's like a DC 5, so you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's again because of your background. So actually, yeah, you heard him say an amber jewel. That exact phrasing actually makes perfect sense to you. You know of the Jewels of Eroth, the established organization of persons that were born outside of persons that are born outside of wedlock, depending on their background, so on and so forth. It's an embarrassment to have a bastard child, right? Especially if it was a bastard child born from infidelity, right? So usually what you do is you just, instead of smashing the kid against the walls or something like that, or raising them as like a black mark in your family and an embarrassment, you can actually do them in honor and do your family in honor and gain honor from the Jewels of Eroth by offering them to the to this house, to this organization, where they take these children, they name them at the time of taking, and then they are raised to have purpose within the organization. So the entire Jewels of Eroth is made out of either orphans, which is to a smaller degree, or bastard children, which is to the larger degree, just because not all orphans kind of find their way in there, but some do. Anyways, the reason why you know these people the most is because the Amber Jewels you've actually worked with many times in the past. Amber is actually the bookkeepers, the ones that keep track of all record keeping and so on and so forth. They are a wonderful organization, a group part of that organization, because not only do they keep track of records for their own organization, they actually help nations to keep record keeping. They actually are. They actually help with building historical records, so on and so forth, and almost act as like a backup data bank for important things. So God forbid something happens, like your library of records were to be burnt down, they can have a backup record for you to like, oh, here you go, we just make a copy, and that now you have it as well. So they're actually a really good group to have. You don't know of all the gems, just you only got a 17, but you know, of course, of the amber. You know, of course, of the diamonds. Everybody knows of the diamonds. They're called muses. The diamonds are companions for hire that are for like highbrow events, like really, really like not even just black tie, but like high events, like royal and noble events. And then there's the Moissanite, who kind of like watch over everything. You know what I mean? They're the shooting stars of the organization. The others, I mean, there are other groups, but you don't know what they are. So you know what an amber is, and so don't you, Neil. You have no idea one, and this guy was just like, I just brought somebody here and didn't tell you. Go ahead.
Legitimately, he's like the wanting to like put a like thinking about setting up a thing. Valorant does that, like kid in the candy shop will look to Ray and like yes, say yes.
What is he talking about?
They're bastards, noble-born bastards who are given to an organization and trained for a purpose. In this case, the Amber are lawkeepers. They gather and hoard knowledge, and then, should knowledge be required, they can give it back to you for a price.
And where was this person while that you brought with you that I have not seen and do not see amongst you?
Amongst my soldiers, documenting the battles, documenting the actions of the soldiers and the merits that they have, that they might earn for when we return home. It's not abnormal to have one travel with certain armies or certain groups. It is a little abnormal to have them when they're cutting their teeth, but this is, again, an abnormal way to have it done. He is wearing a soldier's uniform to defend himself and make sure that he doesn't stand out in case those of Haude Gwenh would target someone such as that, either for keeping for ransom or to kill.
One would nod at that, and then he would say, Have you brought any others that you forgot to mention?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't forget. I intentionally did not, for the reason I just mentioned. I didn't know your methods or approach to situations either, and no.
Well, perhaps we should forget that little piece of lore, and perhaps we could meet this amber jewel. I, for one, would be interested to learn of what they think of our small kingdom.
Indeed.
I think the notations of what happened in the battles around here are good enough. I can leave the jewel with you. He would be, I imagine, an asset as you are shoring up details here after your battle, and I'll take the rest of my soldiers and ride south. We can collect them on our way back west.
Very well. I have one other request. Should you head south, should you encounter a battlefield, you will also encounter a somewhat hidden city. You will encounter the high walls of our allies. I would request that any such information regarding them is not handed out freely to your soldiers. They are a secretive bunch. Although I understand you cannot necessarily hide the information from your superiors, you understand that these are our allies, and I would not be so negligent as to admit this.
He nods and says, we're not here to do anything more than request the aid of someone who is perceived as owing a favor anyways. And I think that everything has worked out as well as it has. Why don't we keep things pleasant? I'll gladly fulfill your request. Is there a name to this city?
On the caveat that this name travels only upwards to the ears of the Queen, it is Vigil.
Vigil. The Splinter Group.
That is correct.
I actually have heard whispers, I suppose, of Vigil, mentions of it. They are Paradel. They're Perrin. But broke off from Perrin some time ago, over a century or some such.
They are Perrin, but they are most certainly not Paradel.
Well,
Unlike the expansionist ways of Parentdale, they prefer to stay where they are and mind their own business.
there are... I'm sure you recognize who I am, correct? Chosen? He says, but it's one of those things when he calls you Chosen. It's the first time he actually used your title, because he almost said Wherein, and it was one of those things where you could see that half-second trip or a quarter-second trip where Chosen's what, like, Chosen, like.
Hello.
Wherein would incline his head.
Then you know that I am privy to perhaps more knowledge than the average magister would have. There are rumors traveling around about what's going on in Paradel. Not all of it. Different provinces are affected differently, but it seems as though for the past year or so, the people of Paradel have become... Their warlike tendencies have become a little bit more satiated. The soldiers less willing to fight. Even people in the center of Paradel calling for peace to finally happen along its borders. And the name Vigil has come up as the splinter group that, again, was marked for over a century ago, having broken off. Talking about how those people had broken off and formed their own society hidden elsewhere from them. Others are talking about maybe doing the same. These are, of course, whispers, rumors of commanders wishing to finally end their ceaseless warfaring. I mean, you can imagine after 30, 60, 80 years of leading armies into and out of battle, some people might choose to retire. to the benefit of Malta, some commanders have luckily chosen to retire. Speaking of, have you heard of Leon Jaeger?
I have indeed.
One starts to laugh.
Tesh, how does your character react?
that sort of the sort of complete sort of like lockdown, and then he laughs. The lockdown's more like, oh god, wait, what?
So seeing everybody's reactions, it's kind of like he actually takes an extra second and a half to like take in everybody's reaction. And he goes, "My apologies. The question was specifically for you, chosen of the Quill." As again, he's trying to like parse through the titles because they're all new to him. He's like, my question was specifically for you, chosen of the Quill. I just realized it did not fucking record this hour. God damn it! This is going to.
You know,
You're gonna have to export the VOD.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to export a 6 hour. No. I'll do it. It's easier in 1 hour segments.
Yeah, just do highlight.
We
just
have to
highlight
start,
and export.
We have to start it
I'll
with
highlight and export, which I'll have to remember how to do.
professional stream.
It's super
I'm looking
easy,
down like,
Scott.
no, it's not highlighted because I never fixed my little pictures down there. After
Scott,
I
it's super easy. I can walk you through it.
No, yeah, and thank you, Tesh. We'll
Let a
take
real
this over.
professional stream.
Wow, moving on. He actually says, "Never mind, men to battle." So he says, he says, my question was actually specifically to you, chosen of the Quill. But it seems as though all of you know Leon. He had retired, which greatly impacted the battles that we're fighting along our southeastern borders. But is he here?
We are all quite familiar with General Jaeger, yes.
General?
Yes,
That was
he's
his
our
rank.
general.
What did you say?
That
One
was
just
his
says,
rank.
yes, he is our general.
He actually sits there for a moment of silence and he says, "I've never met the general." He says, "I never met the general. I've never had the opportunity. I've only heard stories. If I may have one more request before I leave your lands, I wish to meet the man."
Well, where you're going, you most certainly will.
Yes.
He actually looks over to one and says, "He's to the south."
One nods.
Then I'm looking forward to us ending this conversation.
I just sort of looked at Raymond with that sort of like, should we be worried look?
I might add, meeting the general entirely depends on his agreement to receive you.
He nods and says, of course, but please understand, I do not mean this in any aggressive manner whatsoever.
Any soldier has heard the stories and will be inspired. I understand.
Not just any soldier, but yes. I happen to be friends with many magisters and a few savants that have licked their wounds running from the battlefield. The day he retired was a day we rejoiced.
He is still rather formidable. However, he does seem to like his home pleasures.
He does. It seems to like his what pleasures?
Home pleasures.
He looks to all of you and says, "Well, the Amber Jewel will stay behind. My men and I will head south. Whether or not I see you again on the battlefield, understands that the banner of Valorin will be flying just beneath the banner of Malta. The Gish soldiers at your service. Gentlemen, chosen."
Magister?
And he'll turn his horse round and head off. Now, again, you brought a couple of soldiers with you, of course, as like you guys are the chosen here. You're in your lands. You're all, have to, of course, protect yourself. So he never rode up with any other soldiers with him. There are other soldiers about and whatnot, many of them listening to the conversation, while some of them full on listening, others sharpening their swords, totally not listening. But he never came up with any others. So when he turns and he goes back, he goes back and starts talking to his lieutenants that are wherever his little camp or whatever it was, a little bit further back, and they start going out and giving orders for people to get up, get ready. As for how many injured he has, could you do me a favor, Jake, and roll me a d6? It's technically d6 times 5. Hopefully you roll a low number. Yay! Only 5%, which means 5 of his soldiers are
Nice, good job.
Because there's only 100 soldiers he brought with him, right?
Damn.
Only 5%, which is 5 of his soldiers, are staying by to be cared for by your people. That 5% are casualties. As to whether or not any of them died or are injured, we can actually have that be, we can worry about that some other time. So it means that his other 95 soldiers plus himself, or technically 94, because one of them was actually a jewel hidden, are charging, marching, my apologies, to the south to join on the Battle of Vigil. All right, again, I imagine your characters will want to also eventually make your way down there as well. Shut up, chat. But is there anything else that you kind of wanted to do in this area? I mean, you finally got to meet with Magister Heathgart, but you have these other armies about. Anybody that you wanted to talk to, anything you needed to do at your city. Are all of you heading south? There's some of you going other directions. I suppose I'm going to throw it back to Tesh first. Tesh, unless you want to RP with them first, do you have a mindset of your character?
I think, honestly,
I know,
right now,
Josh, I know.
Valinor would want to be in the capital with all the refugees from Rid, with all the wounded. He's seen the forces that we have with us, and I think he's not needed as much as the other two are in combat as far as he looks at it. He needs to, like, now that the war's coming to the tail end, we need to make sure the people are okay, is how he'd look at it.
Beautiful. So it's actually a really good idea. Like you said, you have all those refugees that ran over from Rid. For those that kind of just joined us from the raid, Rid is a town that's over here. Rid was unfortunately lost in the war that's ongoing, and everybody had to run back to their only other town, which is their capital, and they were able to defeat the army invading there. But
I agree, actually. I think that's a good idea, and it shows like the people of Reed are like, wow, the Chosen's staying behind for the war to look after us.
yes,
Yeah.
the one that was supposed to defend them in the first place.
Exactly.
Now, the fact that you lost
he's
that
still
battle is a
caring.
different conversation, but I mean, unfortunately, your hired army, your mercenary army, kind of like, nah, we're good. And they ran off. So cool. So we understand that. That's
I
what
will
your
say the
character-
benefit is that it wasn't our soldiers that failed that fight.
Yeah, that's
It
very
was-
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So when your soldiers actually fought, you won. So last time they attacked Rid. So cool. We have that as a mindset before you guys do any RP that might take place, or we can skip. One, what is your mentality, Jake? Where do you want to do? Again, whether it be RP or you already have an idea.
The only thing I want to do is go to the shrine, pray, and then seek out Nellie and set her to watch this jewel.
Oh, to watch after them? Sure. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
And then, but because that entire thing will take maybe 2 hours or so. What is kind of your intention moving forward? Maybe even 4 hours.
To head to Vigil.
Okay, so you want to go south to Vigil with Perfect. I said with Rayrin, assuming Rayrin's going, but I could be wrong. And Neil, Rayrin, what do you want to do with your time?
Rayun will rally the riders, have them prepared to ride out once again, to finish the war finally. And he's gonna pop in and see Hansa if he can, because his armor has been through a lot. And I can't remember, it's been a long time, and Rayrin can't actually, unusually for him, he cannot remember whether or not she was crafting him some armor or whether she needed more materials or not. So he's going to visit her nonetheless and find out.
The armor that Neil and I talked about, I think after session 0,
like
before
8
session
months
1.
ago.
Yeah, like when the campaign first started. But I was like, well, you have to find somebody that can make it, you know?
Things get in the way when you're ruling. Oh God, so many things get in the way.
Well, she had a lot
So
of
many.
other tasks to do. And anyway, so Cool. So that first little tidbit there was, not a big deal. But so going to speak to Hansa, we can actually have you do that one first because Tesha's is pretty easy. He's more or less going to hang behind and keep an eye on things. So unless you guys are going to RP. So and then Jake is very easy. Once again, you're going to go. You're going to pray. You're going to speak to Nellie. She of course listens. There's no reason why she wouldn't. She's become one of your most devout people in your small temple. Or shrine, my apologies. And so she, of course, is going to do exactly what you're asking. I'm going to have a little RP thing for you onto the side in a couple of minutes, Jake, but let's go to Neil. So, Neil, when you go to...
One quick note. So the process of what Valorant would be doing in the capital over the next couple of days to a week or however long it takes, he would be first priority is making sure the wounded are okay. Second is going about the town, and he'll do this every day. Going about the town, making sure the refugees are okay, everyone in the town's okay. There's no things, and then after he's done that, he would go and talk with the jewel and talk to them about what they've learned, about what answer questions and stuff. Because Valorant values that sort of. One of the major reasons Valorant hated Parendale is they destroyed history.
Yeah. So
Valorant would want everything cataloged, including the failures and the strengths. He would want that stuff cataloged.
So I'm going to change the order of what you said ever so slightly. The Amber Jewel would be better at your side for some of that other stuff too, because
if
those
they
other
come,
things are
then
going to
that's
take
fine.
So much time that a little off and on conversation while you're handling other things with that person would work.
That's exactly what I was sort of trying to say. Is he would show that his priorities are people first, then talk, but he's also very much wanting to talk.
Exactly, and so that's perfectly fine. And you would notice, you're a keen boy. You would notice that at some point in time, pretty early on in this interaction with them, that what's her name, Nellie would be joining along and be like,
"Oh yeah,"
you'd be like,
yeah. That's one of the things where, while Valorant wants everything cataloged,
pretty oblivious.
No,
maybe
Val knows what you've been doing. Val knows about all the stuff with Nellie. At least I believe he knows about it.
Is Nellie a part of the harem, or is she just a servant? I don't remember.
Anyway, Val would I would also want to clarify. While Val would want everything cataloged in terms of facts that happened and that that sort of stuff, he would obviously be smart about it. He wouldn't give things away that you shouldn't give away. We would keep it being what general knowledge, what happened.
Okay. So we'll go to your RP thing right after we get to Neil's RP thing. So Neil, you're going to go speak to Hansa because she's a beloved NPC that we don't get to see very often. She's one of our few examples of hobgoblins that actually has a name in the world. So when you go and meet up with Hansa, she's not just at her location. It's one of those things where she's there. She has some of the other persons of Rid that she knew from before that retreated away. Because remember, she was in Rid for a period of time when you met her along the.
That's true. Yeah.
So she's not just there. She's actually there and has a couple of people that she knew, kind of lending hands. It was one of those your armies just keep fighting, and so they're bringing weapons in, and she's sharpening blades, straightening them out. She doesn't have time to craft new things, so she's good enough, and gives it back. It's it's doing what she can to repair stuff. So she's been kind of round the clock working, trying to make this kind of stuff happen for you. When you go in there and you see her, it's literally one of those times where she's off to the side and she actually has a bit of a tome, like a book of notations, note keeping or whatever of the things that she's doing, and you can see the way that she's kind of slumped over the table. And this isn't a desk, but the table that she's sitting at and doing work. The food next to her partially eaten, but long gone cold. The several empty mugs in front of her of who knows how many different cups of coffee or tea or whatever it is that are being brought to her, just being drank and never being cleaned up afterwards. Glug mug ale. And all of that stuff. It's actually, you guys officially sent him to help her, didn't you? So all in wooden mugs. So you can see the way that she's there. It's one of those. She obviously has not had much opportunity to sleep, but she's also a pretty disciplined person, so you imagine she does find her time.
Yeah,
She
she's a
just keeps it
scary
limited.
person.
Yeah. So when you come in, it's one of those. She definitely looks tired, but is also kind of deep into her work. So when you go over and you open the conversation by saying,
Ray would like walk over, look at the mess, perhaps poke it with a finger, and then say, "I see that you have been fighting your own war."
she looks up at you, looks down, finishes what she was writing, and then closes the like blows on it to like dry the ink, and then
Raven waits patiently. She's
Closes it.
scarier than the Magister.
and then she closes the book and she says, "You lost weight."
Well, rations tend to do that.
It might not fit correctly. Let's go. And she gets up and walks off, and as she's like leading you into like like the back area where she keeps like some of her other supplies and finished products or whatever that are there, as she leads you into that back area, she like doesn't quite hold the door open, but there's like a moment where you go like walk past her. She does kind of turns her head after you as you're going, and she says, "At least you don't smell of war."
Yes, well, Valorant sorted that, actually.
I'll have to thank him personally. Take him off. and then she like reaches into a chest and starts pulling out different bits. Like she pulls out, like you can see the chest piece that's there, the arm piece, and so on and so forth. She starts pulling out all these bits of. It's almost like a quilted armor that exists, designed to be very light and comfortable, but also super resistance towards things like hold on. Music. Very light and comfortable, but also resistance towards things like easy piercings and whatnot from going in, right? This is, again, to catch people in chat up. Neil and I had a conversation forever ago that in D&D, in 3.0, 5e, whatever you want, the shittiest armor that's offered is padded armor, which is funny because in real life historical warfare, padded armor is not garbage. It's actually better than leather armor, because while leather might be slightly better at, say, turning a slightly scathing, like a skimming blow might be turned away, you can easily pierce through it and can still cut through it. Padded armor will stop piercings from going in, and slashes would have to get through layer upon layer upon layer of very thickly bound in wool underneath layers of cloth or wool. So it actually is much more protective, as well as being less cumbersome. It's just more difficult
Flexible.
to make. Yeah, leather's actually cheaper and easier to make. It just smells and ruins water holes and whatnot.
And it's stiff. Like if you like to actually try and get armor from leather, it like you have to really boil the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it becomes stiff as fuck then.
Yeah, and then you have to like really break it in, which makes it easier to move in, but then to a degree limits the areas that are broken in. It's now a little bit less defensive. Anyways, Anyway, she says take them off as she starts pulling this stuff out, and you imagine you start stripping. Okay, so as you start taking everything down, and she takes out all the different areas and whatnot on it, she says, "I took the liberty of making a couple of modifications to this armor to make it a little bit easier for you to get it off and on. But while you are she says, but while you're disrobed, I'm going to take measurements because I intend to work on another suit of armor moving forward. Obviously, this kind of armor is going to be a bit of a pain in the ass for me to make time and time again for all of your soldiers. But I have an idea of what we can do for something a bit more standardized. We're going to need a tannery, though."
Standardization seems good. Tannery, though, supplying the leather for a tannery would be difficult.
Not so much. A lot of horses died in the war.
I see. Well, you're not wrong, I suppose. This can wait until after the battle. Draw up plans of what you'd need for a tannery, the resources, the manpower, and come see me when I return to Kurzfall, if you would. And I will give it a look over and we can see what we can do.
After, she kind of nods or whatever, she grabs, or like a little bit of a grunt. She goes over and she actually starts helping you put on the armor. Of course you're thinking there's yourself, I can put on my own armor, soldier. But it's actually, she designed it different than how you would typically put this kind of an armor on. You know what I mean? It's one of those, obviously the chest piece, because you don't want somebody else to help you, you put on almost like the way you would a jacket. So underneath it, she has like a layer of somewhat of a stiff kind of material. You come to realize that literally underneath the armor, she has a bit of like a thin layer of a lamb skin, supple for leather, but more stiff than say a typical like a cotton shirt or whatever it might be. And again, if you were to just wear that on, you have full range of motion, no problem, so on and so forth. But it's that like additional layer of protection. Then when you get on like your different cotton area, you can actually see that it comes on and it off to the side over here. So it almost like wraps a little bit to the side and then comes much further wrapping around the other side. There's 3 little lupin eye catches, but then it's also that much smaller degree lupin eye. You can imagine almost like a Velcro style catch that happens over there, which makes it a lot easier to like take off if you need to, or even rip off if you needed to. The arms and whatnot for it, of course, go on nice and easy. The pants and everything go on nice and easy as well. But once again, there are just areas, they're kind of like areas where you would normally be a little less protected. She has additional layers. So for instance, you don't want the armor necessarily too long, because if it's too long of the chest part, then your range of motion can be impacted by it. So instead, she actually has it so it shortens up in layers. So it almost comes down, I don't want to say like a skirt, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't look effeminate at all, but it has like this layered look where the outside comes down a little bit lower than the inside layers. So it still provides protection while not impacting your range of motion and so on. But the whole thing is designed so that you can easily get it off and on very, very quickly. Just with how it is that like even the pants, they open up a smidge on the side so they can drop, similar to how in real life you have a zipper and a button to allow you to take them off and on, despite how thick that booty may be, if you know what I'm saying. So she helps you to get this armor on and shows you exactly how it works. And then it's one of those things where literally as you are kind of like trying it out and everything, you're looking at it and I imagine you're about to say some sort of compliment or in the middle of whatever compliment you're giving, because you would tend to be nice to Hansa. You literally look up to last second seeing her attack you with a dagger.
Yeah, of course.
It's one of those like, oh wow, I really appreciate the stitching.
That sounds about right, honestly.
And so she literally stabs at you with a dagger, and it's one of those, you can feel the pressure, no question, of the dagger. And it does leave like a small little mark in the area where she would have stabbed you. But it stops it from coming through. In which case you're, hey, safe for it. Woo! Cool. It looks really nice, but most importantly, again, it's made out, there's a lot of wool involved in this and everything. But it specifically has the colors that you guys have been using, though you don't officially have a flag.
Yeah, we need to actually generate.
I was about to say, we need the flags and colors. We need to figure that shit out.
Well, I think you guys did choose your colors beforehand, right? Didn't you choose gold and green because you're a bunch of Slytherin fucks?
I don't know.
That's Regicide. Sorry, that's Regicide. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that Gryffindor is Thronekeeper. Definitely. It's not you people.
Technically,
you're
according
kind of a Hufflepuff. You're
according
a Hufflepuff.
to Aurorum Kingmaker, we're like between Slytherin and Gryffindor because we're green and gold. We're like ambitious, but kind of brave and good, but also ambitious enough to like sell thousands of souls or.
I love that Val still has no idea that happened.
Oh, that's messed up. So yeah, do you guys have a you guys are your actual colors green and gold? Isn't that what you had chosen before?
I don't mind. I'm fine with that being
okay
green
with
and
that.
gold. Yeah. Let's go for green
That
and gold.
sounds like it's someone made an Aussie joke and we're like, you know what? Let's go with it.
It fits with our symbol, so let's roll with it.
Okay, cool. All right, so green and gold works. We need to actually come up with exactly what your symbol is with a solid description. I'll let you. Do you actually have a solid description?
You know what we should do?
So whatever your solid description is, think about it before you say it. Because I'll have that clipped. I'll ask like Steve or somebody in chat to
No.
clip.
So what I was gonna say,
I'll give it to an artist and see if they can design it for us.
well, what I was gonna say is, the viewers have been watching for a long time now, and they're gonna have lots of different opinions. So why don't we, after this?
Oh, come on. It's going to be a whole bunch of Kappa in chat. It's
No.
gonna be things like, come
After
on.
this, Scott can go into Discord. He can create a new channel, Blood Kingmaker, for the flag ideas, and people can put it in there, and then we can have a look and see what we like. Let's do it proper. Come on.
Okay.
Come on. Think about like Valorin, Kurzful, like literally every name we've had is done by them.
I'm gonna make a chat right now, right underneath.
Oh, no.
Spoilers chat. Oh
Yep.
man.
We're gonna go in up to stream, man. It's just gonna be like that gif of where the guy walks in with pizzas into the room on fire.
Yeah. So
There's that.
if you need like a what's a brief? Is it? Yes, a brief. We were talking about combining hearth, quill, and blade in some way. Blade, obviously. An axe is a bladed weapon. There's many sorts of bladed weapons. But we were talking about combining the aspects of the chosen into Tesh is already in this. Anyway, we'll leave that to Stu. It might be a bad idea, but it'll be fun.
Okay.
I'm also going to say now we reserve the right to say all of them are rubbish and not take any.
Of course. Oh yeah. Of course, it has to be chosen by the chosen. But yeah. So whatever ideas might be in there, maybe we can figure it out by the end of the stream if people are throwing enough ideas inside there. If not, that's not a big deal. We'll have it done, and like I said, I'll take whatever description is decided upon. I'll give it to an artist because as I'm doing all of my taxes, I realized I was like, oh, last year I only spent like $400 on art, and I can't think of anything to spend art on in what is it, 2020 thus far. Hey, it's time for me to support an artist because in 2018 I spent a lot more on artists. Ollie boy, he got a lot of work out of me in 2018 and 17, but in 2019 it was barely anything. I was like, gotta support my artists. So anyways, so let's continue. What are we? Sorry. So she puts it on you. You try it out. I imagine you give compliments, and then she stabs you in the chest.
Well, once he's recovered from this, finish his compliment. I was going to say the thread work is particularly fine, but I suppose I should say it survives being stabbed by a friend. He'll give her like a look like, you didn't need to do that. You just wanted to stab me. Don't think that went past him. He wanted to do that.
As you're giving that look, she, finishes pulling the blade out from where it was semi-stuck, and she leans in and just kind of like starts like, it's one of those, her face is like right off of your chest as she's like touching the different spots where it is to see how much damage she actually did to the armor and whatnot. And she kind of like, as she's like rubbing her thumb on it, whatever, she gives a nod and says, barely even a blemish. Good. This will survive how often you get yourself into trouble.
Well, nonetheless, attempted stabbing or not, I am grateful. I would like to stay for longer, perhaps for a smoke, but unfortunately, I must ride now once again to war. So, you continue fighting yours here, and I will continue fighting mine out there.
Are you leaving already?
Shortly, the riders are preparing.
I haven't finished yet.
Oh?
She reaches back into the chest where she had put that stuff, where she had pulled that from, and she actually pulls out an axe that has a different hue to it than a typical metal. As a matter of fact, the hue looks familiar to you as you're thinking for a couple of moments. Like, why does that metal seem to have a slight bluish sheen to it? It's a little strange. And you can see that the axe itself is like, I mean, it's a decent shape, decent design, definitely a battle axe of sorts, but has a slight little notch to it, right beneath, like, you know, the curve of the axe, right at the almost right at the apex of the curve, right beneath that. There's a little bit of a notch that's into it, and you can even see like the metal is particularly thick around that area. And she kind of like hands the axe over to you, no ceremony or anything to it.
I'm not really a, this isn't my weapon of choice. I mean, it's very nice, but
You couldn't decide what to do with the metal you got from the tree.
this is the root.
I was able to identify what it is. It's living iron.
Do I need to feed it?
She gives you like a look like she's not amused. I imagine Rayron actually does chuckle to himself. Not to that degree. Do you know what living iron is?
I mean, I presume it grows.
It's as resistant as typical iron, she says, taking it from your hands, like very, again, unnecessarily pulling it from your hands and walking back out the door where you guys came from. She only brought you back here to give you privacy so you didn't drop trowel in front of the other people. And she starts walking back out there where the clinging is very loud and whatnot. And as she's walking over towards an anvil, she says, it's living iron. It's iron that itself is not quite inorganic. That's she would probably didn't use that phrase. Not quite dead or never living the way that iron is, but also not quite alive the way that the wood that it came from is. She puts it onto an anvil and kind of throws like a strap over it, like something that holds it nice and firm. So it's like strapped to the anvil, and its axe head is off to the other side. And she says,
"It's going to take a step back."
It's a lot more durable. She says it's a lot more durable than typical iron. Only about as durable as steel, perhaps a little bit less than. Depends on the craftsmanship itself. But it has extremely unique features. She grabs one of her, mallets or whatever that you use and her hammers, and she raises it and smashes the very edge of the axe just in the right angle that she actually breaks the edge of the axe and like drops a chunk of it off of the edge. And so she breaks her workmanship. And you see like that good chunk of it flies onto the floor. And she places like her hammer down where she got it from. It looks like she does it aggressively, but obviously the hammer goes down gently. She's very practiced with putting her stuff down, picking up. She unstraps the thing as you're like watching this happen. Do you say anything or just watch?
Oh, that's a shame.
Not exactly. She says this alone is enough for the properties of the axe, for the properties of the metal to work. Don't do it too often because it takes some time for it to, I suppose, recover from the damage. And that piece on the ground will die if you just leave it there. However, if you want to expedite the process, she reaches down and she grabs it and she literally holds the two pieces together. She holds them together and she says, reunite them. And then there's like one whole minute of silence as she just sits there holding the two pieces
awkward,
together.
eye contact, look away. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
In the name of Lady Arenda. And then eventually she lets go of the piece and the axe is whole again.
Impressive. I suppose I'll hand this to one.
If you can't find the pieces that are broken off, should the axe be shattered, so long as you have most of the axe in hand, it will regrow the missing bits. But again, don't do it too often, as it could have negative effects. It could eventually die. Much like if I were to injure your body too often, you will die.
If you were to stab me with a dagger too often.
Luckily, somebody knows what they're doing.
Well, this has been interesting and enjoyable to see you again. Next time, let us have a rather slower paced meal where we enjoy ourselves and I don't get stabbed.
When you give him the axe, she says, not even like acknowledging what you said. When you give him the axe, I'd like that other one back, the one I reforged into an axe for him. I feel like I'm not done looking into that metal. This will hold him over while I figure that thing out. I imagine it worked well on the battlefield at his side, but that metal is different. I need to know more about it.
Very well, I will ask him. Do be careful messing around with strange metals, though. I'd rather not see this place burned down once again.
She narrows her eyes ever so slightly.
He bows slightly and leaves.
As you're leaving, she says, always a pleasure, Chosen. And you can leave. Awesome. Tesh, we'll go to you next. Oh,